And we're live. Hello, everyone. This is Dwight Woods, the Jeet Kune Do Rebel, and welcome to episode number 90, another of our Turn the Tables episodes. Very quickly, hey, Glenn, very quickly, Rob Lee is going to join us, and he's going to turn the tables, and he's going to be interviewing. I don't like to use that word, right? Interviewing me. So, hey, Russell Leak is here. So Russell Leak, a couple of weeks ago, is the guy who made me aware that you guys are coming on too fast. I can't say hello to everybody and say what I wanted to say. Anyhow, Russell Leak introduced me to the fact that Facebook Live can now operate between, maybe it always could, I just wasn't aware, but can now operate between iPhone and Android. So those of you out there who were thinking that you couldn't come on the dialogues, or that you'd be able to use not having an iPhone as an excuse, hate to tell you, seems like Android works quite fine. So Rob's going to come on, and I have no idea what he's going to want to talk to me about. So hopefully I don't get myself in trouble. But then, of course, if for some reason it doesn't work, then he and I will go off camera like we did. You may remember, I don't have it right here in front of me, but you might remember Rob's been a dialogue partner of mine from a few months ago, but we had to do it off camera on zoom.us. So I'm just giving you the preamble. If he's not able to join us live on Facebook, then we'll do it off camera, and then I'll post it up tomorrow. Okay, let me try to go through the list and say hello to everybody who's on here. Glenn's here, Sifu Randy's here, Darren Waugh, Danilo Salvador, Russell Leak, as I said, Hector Arvelo, Neil Colliff. I was able to catch up with Neil last weekend. He came down to say hello to Ajahn Chai during our Muay Thai seminar. And it was really good to see him. Neil, if you don't know, Neil and I have been, Neil was my first Jeet Kune Do friend back in 1983. And we've stayed in touch since then. And it's good to see him mending quite nicely after his surgery. Who else is here? Billy Brown. Billy Brown, you and I have to talk. I have a slot open for you. Sean Mullins here. Robert Wolski. Mikhail Kazella, Josh Horn. Hey, Josh. Terry Valler's here from the United Kingdom. Scott Ferreira. All right. Nice. Milton Davis is here. Marcelo. Geez, Marcelo, how do you pronounce your last name? Nieuwenhuisen. Geez. I hope I didn't mess that up, Marcelo. Thanks for coming on. Hello, DT. What are you doing? Vint Dockery is here. Samson Jarvis. Jonathan Turner. And Tommy Steele. All right, cool. Okay, so a bunch of good people. Now let's see what Anthony Labrador, nice one. Let's see what, yeah, if you guys would be kind enough to say where you're logging in from. I recognize that picture. Hey, Beverly Pratka is here, guys. That was one of my most favorite dialogue to do, and probably one of the most popular. Stefan Bradley's here. All right, so we're just waiting on Rob Lee to get here. So while we do that, let me see if I can fill you in with upcoming dialogue partners. So as you know, Emil Martirosyan was supposed to be on now, but he's on set. So he and I will talk on Monday, and hopefully he'll be able to tell us what set he was on and what movie he's working on. Rich Citron, who Terry Valor hooked me up with him, but he wasn't able. It was about 6 months ago. So Rick Citron, if you guys don't know who he's the guy behind Matt Damon's friend. Who's Matt Damon's friend? Ben Affleck. Rich Citron is the guy behind Ben Affleck in Batman. So I'd wanted to set up a dialogue with him. I might be able to do that. So Emil will be on Monday, and then next Friday around this time, we'll be talking with the author of the book, Dan Inosanto, The Man, the Teacher, the Artist. I'm pretty sure I got the name right. Which, not for some reason, I mean, it's understandable. That book is available on Amazon for like $500 now, right? The hardcover version. Anyhow, we'll be on with Perry William Kelly next Friday. And here's what we have in the works, still to be confirmed. Jeet Kune Do dialogues with Matt Thornton, with Jeremy Gordon of Triad Jeet Kune Do, Christopher Smith of the IMB in Connecticut, and then Aubrey Lee Groh. And it's kind of funny, the thing with Aubrey, because yes, Neil, Perry's coming on. Aubrey was telling me about the Meyer twins to bring them on, but he didn't know that the real Rick Brocher had actually suggested him as a guest. He's a really interesting guy. I think it'll be fun to have him on. Sean Mullen wants to know who was the CLAT trainer of Ben Affleck in The Accountant. Sean, I don't have that answer off the top of my head. I'll have to try and find that out for you, but I'll get it to you when we post. All right, so Rob's not here. So while we wait for him, if you guys have, I can try to take questions from you. If there's anything on your mind, let me just pull up the page here. I might be able to see it on the phone too. But if anybody's got any burning questions for me right now, go ahead and post them in the comments, and I'll try to pick them up. The CLAT trainer of Ben Affleck in The Accountant. That's a good one. I don't know about that. Let's see. Yeah, so I'm not sure. Hey, John Doty. Did I say Hiram Daniel was on? Yes. David Collins, Mark Hathey. All right, Daniel Burke. Cool. All right, let me see if I can find out this thing about The Accountant. Who else is here? All right, Wyman Toki. Good one. So Rob had said that he might have a little bit of a time crunch, but then everything was supposed to have worked out, so he should be here. Hey, there's my son, Anthony Fontana. All right. Thomas Lamont's here. So let me see if I can find out this thing about the CLAT trainer for Ben Affleck. No. All right, so guys, looks like Rob's not going to show up, so we're going to have to do this off camera. Sorry about that. Let me just make one last check here, see if anybody. Okay, there we go. He must have just heard what I said. All right, let's see. Everybody go like this. Hey, Chris Hernandez. Hey, Paula Osborne, what's happening? Tim Bescherer. Yeah, we're going to try to get to the Q&A, Mr. Burgess. Hey, Paul Chen. As long as I can get Mr. Rob Lee added in here. All right, let's try it one more time. Hey, Dave McCulloch. I think we're in business, young man.
All right. Sorry for
That's
the
okay.
delay.
No problem at all. Are you good?
I'm good,
All right.
sir.
Oh man, that sounds
Great.
like papers that the rustle of papers.
Yeah, you got
no.
it.
What? I don't know if I signed up for this.
All right. Well, we'll give it a
Yeah.
shot. You
Yeah,
ready,
I'm ready.
sir?
Thanks for doing this.
All right.
Actually, it worked out well for me because I'm a little bit under the weather, so I'm glad I didn't have to go researching Emil Martirosyan. I mean, I already did, but I'm glad I didn't have to do any work. All right. So yeah. So what do you want to talk about?
All right. Well, we're dialoguing with you, so we're gonna, I don't know, hopefully I'll have some good, compelling questions for you. So this is the first one I
Uh-huh.
have. What makes you the JKD rebel?
So it's actually a moniker that I stole from John Carlton, the marketing rebel, and this was back in the time when I spent about 12 years as a student of Dan Kennedy and Bill Glazer in copywriting and marketing, and so a lot of my time was spent doing business conferences with them and what have you, and that's where I met John Carlton. Studied a little bit with him, and just decided to adopt that moniker, but also there is a little bit of by my standards, there's stuff that I see in the Jeet Kune Do world that we need to address, and so in by bringing them up, so like one thing, right? So people commend me on talking to other JKD people from outside of the
Right.
Inosanto lineage, and that's not always a thing that is well appreciated, but I don't really care. See, my thing is this. I forget who said it, but it's 100% accurate. We're all branches of the same tree. And my belief is that my teacher, Dan Inosanto, would want me to dialogue with people from the other camps or the other eras or the other locations of Jeet Kune Do and whatever. And so that's why I do it.
Yeah.
And that is a little bit of a rebellious attitude towards it. The other thing is, when it comes to the rebellious attitude, is that I'm not a big fan of boxing, fencing, and Wing Chun, and that's it. I'm actually a big fan of what is there that you can use to enhance your boxing, fencing, and Wing Chun. You see? Right? So I'm not saying at all. I have never said, just like my teacher has never said, that Kali is JKD, that Muay Thai is JKD, that French Savate is JKD. He's never said that. So I've never said that either. But how can Kali, Muay Thai, Pendrak Silat help your boxing, fencing, and Wing Chun? You see?
Okay.
So yeah. So
Yeah.
if that's rebellious, then that makes me the rebel. Otherwise, I just thought it was a kind of a cool name.
Cool name. Okay, so I'm going to put you on the spot here then more. You mentioned the Kali, the Boxe Française Savate. I think that falls into what you frequently refer to as the associated
See,
discipline.
you're one of the few people who actually listens to what I say.
I like your
Yeah,
podcast.
right. And that too is something that I stole from Salem Asli. Yes.
Salem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, it goes back to giving credit where credit's due, which is something that I learned in the JKD world from Dan Inosanto, because he does that all the time. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So let me put you on the
Okay.
spot now. Instead of just the rhetorical, what can we get? How can our JKD benefit from the Boxe Française, the Muay Thai, the Kali, the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, what have you? Rather than just asking as a rhetorical, or stating it almost as such as a rhetorical question, how do those really benefit the Jeet Kune Do?
Okay, so I did an entire broadcast, I Love Jeet Kune Do broadcast series on the associated disciplines, right? So I'll give you an example. Let's say launching a kick and a tap footwork in Jun Fan is, so the footwork by itself is slide and step. When you launch the attack, the kick and attack, the footwork becomes slide and kick. Now, Boxe Française actually has that approach, but they have a second approach, which is more like chamber slide and kick. You see? So it's not slide and kick. So it actually, so imagine this. So again, you know how in fighting there are people who can switch between left lead and right lead? Imagine if you were
Yes.
able to switch between slide and kick, and then kick and hop, or hop and kick, or whatever it is that you would call it. It's more in your arsenal. Okay. Now,
Okay.
also, what I love, one of the things that I love about what Salem Astley says, and I think Neil just said Salem will be in Coral Springs next month, right? One of the things that I love about what he says is this: those who can do more can do less. Now, Salem Astley has the ability to do 5 different kicks from 5 different angles without putting his leg down.
Right.
Imagine if he just wants to kick you once or twice, right? So
Right. It's easy.
it's the whole idea. Here's the whole idea, or one of the ideas. We all know that our Jeet Kune Do hero, Bruce Lee, worked his butt off. So that's what we do. We work our butt off in boxe française, but not blindly trying to become saboteurs. We go into it looking to see, what is it that I can pull from this? To me, one of the best ways to learn how to angle your body and then kick comes from boxe française. So rather than being more of a linear, straight ahead, let's call it Jun Fan or Wing Chun approach, boxe française can teach you how to angle off and kick from there, which is not something that I found. Now, maybe I didn't know where to look, but it's not something that I found in straight ahead Jun Fan or JKD kickboxing. You see what I'm saying? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, in the way my brain works, the second that you talk about angling, the second that you bring up that word, to me, you're talking about Filipino Kali. So one of my nicknames for boxe française is Kali with kicks, because of the angulation factor. Right? Now, I'm sorry.
Do you think you find additional benefit from the specialized cross training, in addition to what you would get just from taking that concept and just repping it out, like say in the Jun Fan material?
Okay, say that again, because I'm not sure if.
Yeah. Do you find a difference in your training between actually doing, say, a deep dive into the savate versus just taking this abstract concept and practicing it within the context of, say, the Jun Fan kickboxing?
You got to go deep. You got to go deep, and because it's total immersion. The only way that you're actually going to be able to, I'm not feeling well, so I should slow down in speaking. You got you got to go deep. Total immersion is really, to my way of thinking, is one of the best ways to really benefit from what it is that you're doing. If you just stay on the surface, right? So if you go, oh, look, here's this particular savate combination, I like that, I'm going to add that on to what I'm doing. That's not Jeet Kune Do. You see? That's just farting around with techniques. That's becoming a technique hound. You see? And now, that's attractive. That's attractive to certain types of instructors, and it's attractive to certain types of students as well.
Yes.
You see? So, that's all I'll say. But to me, and the whole thing about deep dive, that the person who drove that idea home for me was Cass Magda. And Cass got a lot of criticism when he did his deep dive into Pencak Silat. And, you know, and so a lot of people accused him, I guess in a similar way to the way they accused Inosanto of rejecting Bruce Lee and Jeet Kune Do and going into all these other things. You know, I had a little bit of a discussion online a couple of weeks ago, because there was a quotation from Sifu Dan, and it was something, I think he said something like, to remain a student is, I forget the exact quote, But see,
It's a virtue.
yeah,
Sort,
but see,
yes.
I've been with him for 37 years, right? So I can hear what he says, and then I can go, okay, I know what he means. So I might not take what he says literally, but that's because I've known him for almost 4 decades. You see? So I kind of understand.
Like there's a context
Yes,
to it.
but somebody who doesn't know him as well might think that he's saying something. They might get a completely different understanding from it because they don't get the context. You know, they didn't spend hours in class, hours after class, hours driving in the car, hours, hanging out at seminars. They didn't do that. So they don't really have the reference points that I have.
So what's the interpretation that you glean from that?
Um,
About Guru saying, talking about the
Okay.
virtue of always being a student.
So Anthony Fontana, my son, just says the quote is, once you stop being a student, you stop growing. Right? So so a couple of things spring into my mind from this. Sifu Dan, I remember him saying one time, a long time ago, we were talking about Kali, and he says, okay, so in Kali, there are beginner students, intermediate students, advanced students, and students who teach. You see, that's the same thing. Once you stop being a student, you stop growing, right? But now here's what, in my interpretation, here's what he's saying. Here's what he's actually saying. Once you stop having an inquisitive mind, you stop growing. He doesn't necessarily mean once you stop being a student, because what it was, he had said that he studies as many different things as he can. You see, and then he says, thanks, Anthony. He says, once you stop being a student, you stop growing. That's not what he means, because here's the thing. Dan Inosanto goes into studying all this stuff, as far as I'm concerned. One, because it's fun. It's fun for me to have you question me. I don't have to think about anything, right? I don't have to research and try to come up with good questions for whoever my dialogue partner is. So it's fun being on this end, right? So Dan Inosanto loves being on the end where he doesn't have the responsibility of having to come up with the lesson plan, of having to do it. It's just like, okay, Inosanto, put this foot forward. Okay, now use this hand this way. That's relaxation. You see? So I think that's one of the ways that he relaxes, by giving up the responsibility of being in charge and then learning something cool. But I guarantee you, when he goes to his Cambodian kickboxing class, his brain's clicking over, okay, how's this similar to this? How's it similar to this? The Tang, the Bando stuff, the Muay Thai stuff, the Pandan Jackman stuff, it's clicking over all the time. Yeah. All right. What was the question?
Like there's a tremendous amount of overlap.
Well,
we
there's
were
got to
talking
be.
about the deep dive, and
There's got to be. Okay, let me shut up.
Let's see. Okay, we're going back to, you said, Jake, part of why you're the JKD Rebel is because you dialogue with different camps. You've spoken with a lot of us in the Inosanto community. You've also kind of reached across to the other sides of people of other lineages. I think you had Mr. Davis on a few weeks ago from Alabama. You had Mr. Bunak, etc. So what did you really set out to do in terms of you doing the Jeet Kune Do dialogues and trying to reach across? What's sort of your vision with that?
Bert Richardson asked me something similar, and I guess I'm not ambitious enough to have like these highfalutin visions about what it is that I'm doing, right? I realized that I could get on Facebook Live with a Jeet Kune Do colleague every week, and we could just talk about this thing to which we are so dedicated. So I didn't go into it thinking, with like this strategy. I'm gonna start this thing, and then it's gonna become this, and it's gonna become that, and whatever. It'll go where it goes. but if I had to answer a question about vision for it, the vision for it is to continue talking about Jeet Kune Do, continue putting the stuff out there. Because here's the thing: if we don't do this, this is something against which I have always rebelled. Everybody, you know the quote, the Bruce Lee quote: "Jeet Kune Do is just the name. Don't fuss over it." I think
Yes.
everybody misinterprets that. I think he
Mentioned it,
says,
yeah.
"Don't fuss over the name." I think he
Right.
wants us to fuss over the art. So this
We
is
are,
how I
yeah.
fuss over the art. Because if we don't fuss over the art, then a lot of the truth is going to be lost, because nobody is going to continue to promote it, because we'll all be just like, well, you know, Jeet Kune Do is this, and either you understand or you don't understand. But I think that while that's true, either you understand or you don't, you do also have to bend over backwards and try to help others to understand.
Well, and I guess that I think you're addressing the means of this, but there seems to be a conspicuous attempt to kind of cross over to other sides, to invite people from
For
other
sure,
camps.
because I don't know them as well
I
as I
think there are
know.
people who have
I
dialogued
don't.
with, yeah, I think there are people who've dialogued with you who may be less likely to find themselves in the same gyms, in the same clunes, in the same places training, but have found themselves having conversations with you.
Yeah,
That seems like a conspicuous, I don't want to say agenda because that sounds contrived and less less
yeah,
authentic. But I think that there's a conspicuous attempt to reach across the aisle, conspicuous attempt to have dialogues with people who, because if you know, we know a lot of the same people.
exactly.
You know, if you say, hey, who should I talk to? I can say, oh, my buddy Eric, or, you know, Luigi or Alex up in New York, or Jeff
Yes,
Westfall, or
yes,
whoever. We are in the same
yes,
circles. You've been kind of reaching to people who are outside of those
yes.
circles.
Because
I think it's valuable, but I wonder what's behind that.
exactly what you
What sort
said.
of do you wish to
Exactly what
accomplish?
you said. I don't know the people from Seattle and Oakland and elsewhere as
Yeah,
well as I know somebody like Rick Fay, you know? But of course I want to have Rick Fay on my program. Come on, he's one of the coolest guys there
right.
is, right? Of course I want to have Kevin Seaman, Jeff Westfall. Of course I want to have those guys on. But I want to know what Lamar Davis is about. The first time I met Lamar Davis,
Yeah,
I came away thinking, man, you can say whatever it is you want about this guy, but he is definitely dedicated to Bruce Lee and Jeet Kune Do. And for me,
yeah.
that's enough. That's enough of a starting point right there. You get what I'm saying?
Hmm.
So, and yeah,
Oh, absolutely.
and once again, and I've said this many, many times, I am not a spokesperson for Dan Inosanto, but I kind of think that he would want
Right.
me to talk to people from other lineages, of course.
Well, I think that's a good example. And again, I don't want to focus too much on Mr. Davis, but I really enjoyed the dialogue with him. And it was one of those things where until it kind of popped up on Facebook, I probably wouldn't have thought to go
Yeah,
looking.
yeah, um,
It
yeah.
was
I
pretty
mean,
cool.
and he, you might remember I had gone to his seminar. Um, I don't remember what year it was. He actually remembered the year, I think. And why did I
Yeah,
do that? I did that because that's what Dan Inosanto would do. If he had the opportunity.
yeah,
When Gary Dill came to Miami, I went to his seminar. You know, because there's one thing to look, there's one thing to sit back and talk about people when you have no knowledge of them whatsoever. There's
yeah.
another thing to sit back and engage with others who are talking about people about whom they have no knowledge. And then there's going out and getting the knowledge yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I thought it was a good forum to kind of see what some of these other camps are doing, and really kind of respect their approach and what
Oh,
they're
for
up
sure. For
to.
sure.
Yeah, I to say myself, I'm not real familiar with the Seattle or Oakland
Hmm.
folks either, and I don't know what opportunities I would just in kind of my daily life to cross paths with them. So it was interesting to hear their
Yeah.
perspectives and see how they're carrying
Yeah,
things
a
on.
lot of the feedback that I've gotten is that people really appreciate the programs as an opportunity to get some insight. Like you said, you might not be physically able to be in the presence of these people, but if you can hear them um, if you can hear them talking, you know, and hopefully I ask good enough questions that probe the depths of their minds and what have you, and then you can find out more about them for sure.
Yeah. And it seems kind of like the glue of the Jeet Kune Do family. There, and this has come across, I think, is everyone's respect for Sigong Bruce. I think it came across with Richard Torres. He just seemed to have just a tremendous historical knowledge. Obviously, Mr. Davis. I can't remember the other gentleman. The guy from Oklahoma, even. I thought
Bob Landers.
He was. Yes, I loved listening to him. He was great.
Bob Landers, man, he's such an enjoyable character. He really is, right?
Yeah.
But see, now he's put me in touch with two other gentlemen from the Ted Wong lineage, and these are guys that I don't know them at all. So I want to go find out.
Well, taking a few steps back, let me ask you this. So, prior to your involvement in Jeet Kune Do, what were you doing martial arts wise?
I was doing Shaw Brothers Kung Fu.
See.
I was a cinematic student of Chi Quan Chun, Fu Sheng, Chen Quan Tai, Chen Sing, Wang Yu, David Chang.
Okay. We were the guys who like after Saturday Kung Fu cinema go out Kung Fu with his buddies.
See, so that was Saturday Kung Fu for you guys. That was all week Kung Fu for us. Okay? I've told this story before. We had the Globe Cinema, the Empire Cinema, and the Plaza Cinema in Barbados. And each of them showed double features, different double features. So every week was 6 different Kung Fu films. That's called heaven. That's called heaven.
So how did you then cross over from Shaw Brothers Kung Fu into the world of Jeet Kune Do?
That's called the Big Boss. That's called the Big Boss. And so his little medallion gets broken and he lets loose.
Right.
And I go, holy crap, what is this? Because it was not at all Shaw Brothers Kung Fu anymore.
Yeah, he was the reluctant hero.
But I'm talking about the physical action, the actual physical expression, the way he moved. I was like, what? You just go like quick and direct and finish the job? You don't fight 15 guys for 15 minutes?
Right.
And that was it.
So then when did you cross into the actual training?
So then that became, what can I find out about this guy? So you know, the magazine articles, the books when they came out and what have you. But and so I did that for about 10 years on my own. Yeah, magazines, books, and whatever, right? I like to say that I became Barbados's resident authority on Bruce Lee and Jeet Kune Do, but that's just my inflated ego. And then in '83, I went out to California. I went out to see Sifu Inosanto, and that was the new chapter in my Jeet Kune Do development.
And that was your first training under a martial arts instructor as well?
No. I actually joined. I joined a local martial arts school. There was a school in Barbados that taught a Chinese system. Right, it was a system that originated with a Chinese guy in London, England, and so I trained with them for a while. I also had training partners from the local Shotokan school, from the local Taekwondo school, from the local Kyokushin school, and what have you. So I was definitely taking a look at what other people were doing and what have you. So, you know, from time to time, people would come over to my backyard, and we would do our thing there. So I actually had instruction. And then in a period between, in 1980, I spent a few months in Seattle, and I got to, yeah, Andrew Dash is saying Maxi. Yes, Andrew, Maxi Baldeo for one, right? I'm talking to a kid down in Barbados, right? So I spent a couple of sessions with Michael Lee, who is Jesse Glover's little brother in Seattle. But I mean, but you know, so that was my first trip to Seattle, my first trip to Cedar Bruce's gravesite. I spent some time there. I wasn't knowledgeable enough or intrepid enough to actually find Taki Kimura. And you know, so a friend of a friend set up the Michael Lee thing, right? He actually didn't know how to find Taki Kimura, so I never got that chance. Yeah. Okay. But that was the crossover.
And so you
from as somebody said, from Shaw Brothers to Golden Harvest.
Oh wow. Okay. So you've been with Guru for 37 years.
Yeah, let's see. What this is 29. So 36 going on 37. Yeah. Next year will be 37. Yeah.
Okay. Over that space of time, what changes have you seen in terms of like how the training has been presented, how it's been passed on? Because I know in my own experience, I started the first time I ever saw Guru Dan was 2000, and it was over at Keith Witowski's seminar up in Auburn, Indiana. And in the time that I've been a student of Sifu Dan, I've seen kind of some small adjustments here and there, what's emphasized, what seems to be kind of on, for lack of a better term, on the agenda. That, you know, we're talking about 17 years now for me, kind of on and off. What have you seen in terms of differences in how the art is, how it's taught, what's emphasized over your 36 years?
So here are a couple of things that jump to mind immediately. The actual physical locations and structure. When I went to see him, they were still at the when I joined him, they were still at the Kali Academy in Torrance, right, for a few months, and then the Kali Academy closed, and the IMB opened up, and the IMB, to me, the IMB was one of the first super gyms like what we have today. You see, right? The Kali, actually, yeah, the Kali Academy was the first super gym. If you look in Sifu Dan's Jeet Kune Do Art and Philosophy book, and you just look at the pictures in there, and then realize that this was, you know, this was the early 1970s. But you see the wall of heavy bags. You see the wall of top and bottom bags. Yeah. You see the shelf with the focus mitts. You see the weapons and what have you. That place was a work of art. That's what we have today. But they did that 40-something years ago. And the IMB also, right? But now the first version of the Inosanto Academy that I attended had maybe 4 or 5 heavy bags in the back. That's it. Because it was a little warehouse over in Marina del Rey. And so then we went from there, we went to the Manchester Avenue location.
Is that the one by Furama Hotel?
Right? And so that was more of a super gym with the ring in it and what have you. And then ultimately there was the return to Marina del Rey with probably the same amount of space, you know, and 2 stories and what have you.
2 levels.
So some of it, so that's one definite change, going from that little warehouse with 4 or 5 heavy bags to, you know, huge expanses, right? And then being able, so then you're able to you're able to offer more, and that's one thing that that maybe is, like, I'm not sure what the current schedule is at the IAMA, but I remember when there was when we went from basics, phase 1, phase 2, 3, phase 3, 4 classes to individual classes, to the Kali class, to the Silak class, to the Savat class, to the Muay Thai class, to the you know, and then also with the different instructors. You see, so at one time, Paul Detours, Pendekar Paul Detours, he had a class there, right? Yeah.
Oh wow.
Okay. So I'm not sure if it's still like that, or if it's now whatever Sifu Inosanto doesn't teach, it is an instructor and a senior member of the Inosanto Academy who's in charge of that class, as opposed to separate classes now, and you know, like, let's call it different guest instructors, right?
Right.
Now, in terms of the art and how the art has been, I think that in the same way that Sifu Dan changes his lesson plan for the seminar circuit, I think similarly he changes the lesson plan for the academy classes from time to time. And I don't know if I can't say that I can identify a specific methodology behind that. I think that it's perhaps just a thing where you go with the flow, and, you know, maybe you see something and you think, okay, we need to spend a little bit more time on this. Maybe we haven't spent enough time on it before, or what have you. I don't know if, I really can't tell, because he and I have never sat down and looked at and talked about curriculum development or curriculum design. We never have. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I vaguely remember one of your dialogue partners talking about, like, cycles. It might have been Tim Becker.
Yes. And Tim would have a better answer for you on that, because he's up front and center at the Inosanto Academy. But yes, I know Sifu Dan has talked about that cycles, right? And you know, I want to say that that it's like on a 2-year cycle or something, but I don't quote me on that.
Yeah, well, because I had when I had a break from training in graduate school for a few years, and I think the last time I trained with Guru Dan prior to that was in St. Louis, and I started back up in New York, and there were things that he showed which I'd never seen before, and it was very interesting.
Well, you know, that's what comes from having such depth of knowledge. You know, I remember when he would say things like, we could spend the whole weekend just on double stick. You know what I mean? And I was like, that's true. Good God, right? Imagine that, right? You know, but I think if he probably would not be too excited to spend the whole weekend on double stick, just like now you and I might be. You know, I don't think he would be excited to spend the whole weekend on the lead punch. You and I might be, right? But I don't think that he would. I think he would think that he was not giving people their money's worth if he showed just that little bit of stuff. I think he would think that he was not mentally challenging them, you know? But again, I'm not a spokesman for Dan Inosanto, but that's, I get that sense.
Well, let me put something
Uh-huh.
out there, and I'll ask your opinion. Sometimes, in my experience, I find that sometimes I am looking for one thing, and then something else will be interjected, and I think it's the idea of, I know you think you're looking for this, but I want you to look a lot broader. I want you to kind of expand your mind.
Okay.
That mental challenging. So have you had that experience where, you know, in your training with Jeet
Yeah.
Kune Do, perhaps you're looking for like a very finite thing, and instead you get hit with something which just kind of turns the world upside down, new perspective, forces you to sort of um,
Right.
rethink things on a grand
Yeah.
scale.
Nothing jumps to mind. I'll tell you why I think that is.
Okay.
And Neil Coliff would probably verify this. When we joined Inosanto, he was what we call on fire. Okay, so it was
Yeah.
it's we came in during that time of like immense creativity. So I think we were on the receiving end of how to look for stuff, how to identify
Hmm.
stuff, how to not be surprised if you found something that you weren't looking for. You know what I mean? So Neil's saying something
Yeah.
about the training method has been modified. I don't know if I would agree that the training method has been modified, but when I bring Neil on for another dialogue, he and I can discuss this. I'm not sure. I'm not sure that I would agree that Inosanto's training method has been modified. Um, I just think that from time to time he focuses on different things. You know,
Yeah.
I don't think that at 83 he is going to do a whole lot of focus mitt stuff and make everybody huff and puff on a seminar. But now in 19, well, I'm just saying. What do I know, right? Okay, so Neil says it was hardcore fighting method at that time. All right. Yeah. Okay. You know what? Okay. All right. I think I understand this. It's kind of like Ajahn Chai said last weekend, right?
Yeah.
So Ajahn Chai, he does not have to go um, BTTW because he's got students now. He has an army of students that can do that for
Yeah.
him. So Inosanto doesn't have to go hardcore anymore,
Right.
you know, and lead the hardcore training himself. He's got an army of students that can do that. And I think that's what we are supposed to do at our schools, in our classes, as opposed to
Mhm.
going on seminar with him and expecting him to do that.
Oh
You
yeah.
know what I mean? Right? I think that people,
Yeah.
go ahead, go ahead.
Well, I kind of get the impression that like he specializes at conveying the big
Uh-huh.
picture.
Yeah, because how can he give us the small picture? The small picture is something that you develop on your own
Yeah.
after having been on the receiving end of the big picture. And personality wise, Dan Inosanto would never
Yeah.
try to give you the answers. Never.
Well, I think that was frustrating for me as a student early
Uh-huh.
on. And because rather than being kind of spoon-fed an answer, I would be given a new look on a
Right.
problem and have to deal with the frustration of trying to
Yeah.
figure it out.
Well, that was until you rescued yourself from the American educational system.
I was going to say I found looked for the cause of
Yeah,
my own
there you go.
ignorance, but that's
There you go. Yeah.
same. So let me ask you this: how has your training and teaching changed over the years in 36
Ugh.
years?
Well, again, physical location. So now I'm back to the original small group method. I don't have the big school. I had that for 20 something years, and now it's small group and private clients. Actually, I had a discussion with a client this morning, And I'll tell you one thing that I've had to okay, so I'll tell you two things. So I got myself in trouble at a seminar in upstate Florida a few months ago, where there was something that I would say that I thought was funny, but then I was informed that it's actually not that funny and that it's actually a little bit insensitive, right? So, and really the so-called joke was, let me see what Neil's saying. Wait, let me bring that back. The difference between how he saw his school to his seminars. Okay. All right. So Neil, you and I will book another dialogue and we will discuss this. I'm going to hard copy what you said here and we'll make this a discussion. Okay. So in terms of how I've changed, I have had to come to the understanding and the realization that I am not my students. That my goals and their goals are not at all the same. And Russell Leak touched on this a few weeks ago as well. I used to think that because I could do it, my students could do it. And then Dan Kennedy, when I was studying marketing with him, he helped me to realize that I'm not at all my students, because my students never pursued Jeet Kune Do in the way that I did. They don't have the same, they don't have an identical fire under them. I went out, I went in search. Depending on when you joined me, you either went to the yellow pages or you went to the internet. You didn't have to get up and go, you know, anywhere real far, right? You could just stay within that 5-mile circumference of your house, you see? So I had to understand that. And then the other thing that I have to understand is the people that I'm training. Some people want it. Some people definitely want it. And some don't. So you're always going to have, and you will probably always have more surface dwellers than deep divers. So when you set up your school, here's what you do. You set up your school to take in as many surface dwellers as possible, right? Mm-hmm. Now, that doesn't mean you water down what you teach them, but you do not frustrate yourself trying to turn them into hardcore martial artists. But so you bring in as many surface dwellers as you can, because that gives you the financial wherewithal to cater to the deep divers. And sometimes, and I know this has happened in Jeet Kune Do throughout the eras, sometimes the deep divers, they don't have that much money. Right. You see? But they have that burning desire. You see? So that's how you set up the school. So I have had to come to terms as an instructor with that. One, that I cannot expect people to do what I do because they don't have the same level of interest, or they don't have the same level of even attitude or aptitude for the art. And then I also have to not frustrate myself into trying to get people to to be technically excellent. Because not everybody's, not, you know, some people just want to sweat. They just want to be able to say that I look, you know, I went and I did this and I had a good workout.
How many t-shirts did I go through in the class?
Yeah, right. So so as an instructor, I've had to grow up in that regard. When it comes to what I teach and the way I teach it, I'll admit this. And Miguel's in Colombia, so he can't verify it, but Glenn probably could. Since I started the dialogues, and since I started researching, let's say, Ted Wong's people, for example, there was some stuff that I realized that they work on that we did not work on it the same way. And so in a broad example, they work on the technical excellence of a few things. And I think that there was a time in my history where I worked on the technical excellence of a wide spectrum of things. Now, there's not much wrong with that, but it might not be smart to expect yourself to become technically proficient at a wide expanse of things in the same time frame. You know, so one of the things that I have learned from the Ted Wong people is so like Jason Corral, right? This is something that I got from him. It really actually, because I saw a video of his and I go, that's interesting how they hold the focus mitts. You know, another guy who I haven't been able to touch base with him yet, but Mike Gittleson, right? There's some stuff of his that I saw, and I thought that's pretty interesting what they do, right? Mark Stewart, for example, he's been really helpful with that. But conversely, there's some stuff that the way they do it, I'm not a big fan.
Right.
But is there valuable stuff to what they do and how they do it? For sure. And I think that more open-minded from different lineages, they might want to admit that, there is something to focus in on the lead weapon structure. And sometimes, I think you and I had a discussion about this, didn't we? Yeah, right? Yeah. Yes, it was the whole, the definitive series video, remember? Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Right? That's where it was. I think that sometimes some of the stuff that's lost might be something as simple as lead weapon domination. Yeah.
Yeah.
I got you stumped, huh?
I don't know about stumped. I'm just trying to think of where to go from there. I think it's a good
Well,
place.
I got the 20% power remaining warning. So pretty soon I'll get the 10%, which means that we have about 20 minutes more before my battery goes dead.
Sure. Let's see. Yeah, no, I do recall that we were talking about the importance of the lead hand and the need to kind of interject that at times.
Right. You see, and I think that that what happened was we fell into the standard kickboxing approach of hook, cross, hook, cross, that kind of stuff, as opposed to 3 hits with the lead hand from 3 different angles. So when I sat down and I thought about that, I go, holy crap, Kali helps you with that.
Right.
You see? So that's it. So, but see, now here's the thing. He probably did. I can't say that I recall a specific incident, but Sifu Inosanto probably pointed that out to us at some point. I just don't remember it.
Well, I think that's one of those kind of frustrating things where they kind of let something go and they'll tell you something, and then years later it kind of clicks as to what that means.
Exactly. Yeah.
And the value.
Which is why you got to stick with the art. You know, that's why you got to train, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. So I ran into something similar to that a couple of times. One was the stick and dagger, which I have to say, when I started kind of the Jeet Kune Do and the Kali and things, I was much more interested in the Jeet Kune Do than the Filipino martial arts. It wasn't until I got older that I really started loving the Filipino martial arts.
Yeah.
You know, I like kicking and punching. But the idea of some of the parallels between when you're using a long weapon and then when you're combining the long weapon with the short weapon sort of sequentially. And how and the lessons that come over to your boxing, you know, when you're fencing with your lead hand versus when you're coming in combination. And I think that's also what you're getting to earlier about the way that the different arts, and when you deep dive, that those develop attributes which, even if they're not directly seen, they're there.
And when we deep dive, we have to know why we're doing it. We got to go in. It's kind of beginning with the end in mind situation. so that you don't go in and get caught up with all of the Tuesday, I'll answer your question afterwards, okay? You don't get caught up with all of the flamboyant stuff, because there can be flamboyant stuff in Filipino Kali, right? But right? But we're Jeet Kune Do people. So we go into it looking to extract that which is functional. You see? Mm-hmm. So
so let me ask you this. How do you know what to extract which is functional? What are your criteria? What's your filter? For you personally.
Okay. I'll give you an example. I'll use my trusty short stick here. Have you ever seen how a lot of people, when they pose the wing block, they go like this, and they have the left shoulder forward and the right shoulder is back? And it's a very fancy, it's a very kung fu pose, right? It makes absolutely no sense. The power in the high wing block is not from here, it's from here. You have to keep your right shoulder forward. You see? So that's the kind of stuff that I look for. I look at what you're doing, I go, okay, would that actually work? No, it won't work. Dump it.
So you're talking like structure, the physics behind the technique.
Right? So if your flamboyant stuff has a practical, functional nature to it, okay. But if it doesn't, then I'm not interested. Not at all, right? And then I'm also looking for, you know, what's the progression in your structure? What do you start with and where do you go after A? What's B? And how does B build on A? You know, and stuff like that. All right.
Okay, so then you're also talking about training method, not just tactics,
for sure,
but then
for
how
sure.
it's organized.
Because there's so many, you know, if we limit ourselves to talking about Filipino martial arts, right? There's so many different systems out there, right? And again, you know, how is there going to be a whole ton of difference? So to me, the differences can only be in how do you put your stuff together. It's like the differences in kata, right? So everybody starts facing to the front and then they go to the left. You know, right? And so then maybe there's somebody who starts facing to the front and goes to the right. But the technical base is probably still going to be the same. But it's when you go where. So in kata, that's all the difference there is. I think in Filipino martial arts, that's all the difference there is as well. Right? It's how you organize stuff. So then if I can get something from how you organize, and it's not limited to just Filipino martial arts. If I can get something from Jason Corral, from Bob Landers, from any of Ted Wong's people, how they structure what they're doing. Richard Torres and I talk about that a lot. You know, what do you do here for this? What do you do here for that?
I saw that Jerry Poteet, how he organized some of his material, I thought was some of the most valuable of the lessons that now I never met the man in person, but just from his media. I liked how he put things together. I liked how he organized. I just
became Facebook friends with a few of his people. There's actually one particular individual that I've tried to be on his case, but I'm not sure if he's that interested. But down the line, I hope to have some Jerry Poteet people on as well. Yeah.
So, the tenets of Jeet Kune Do, or what we frequently think of the tenets of Jeet Kune Do. We're going to hit you with what you hit all of us. Absorb what is useful. Excuse me. Research for your own experience.
Research your own experience
Absorb
for
what
the
is
truth.
Useful.
Yes.
Absorb what is useful. Reject what is useless. Add what is specifically your own. Please, your interpretation or definition of each.
Okay. So, all right. So, guys, if the power goes out before this, let me just say it's been a pleasure being here with you and with you, Rob. Thanks for doing this. Okay, so let's do this. Research your own experience for the truth, right? So, you know, there's this big discussion about your truth versus my truth. That's nonsense. There's your opinion and my opinion. Right. There's your belief and my belief. Truth is an absolute thing, okay? So when you research for the truth, you have to be willing to drop some of your preconceptions if necessary. And then truth, it starts out in martial art, but then it becomes research your own experience for the truth in everything in which you are interested. Right? Yeah. Absorb what is useful. Chris Kent, I think, has talked about rephrasing that to absorb that which is personally suitable or something. right? Okay. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Right. Because again, useful can only be to me. I can't dictate to
Yeah.
you what's useful for you, right? Reject
Right.
what is useless, but don't be too quick to reject. Because if you're researching something that's actually worthwhile, there might not be a whole lot of stuff in it to reject. So don't be in a hurry to reject simply because it's difficult for you. You
Yeah.
see? And then add what is specifically your own. Stay true to your formula, right? Don't just add something because, oh, I like how it looks. Oh, it looks cool. Does it follow the rules that you have set up for what it is that you're doing? You see? So if I'm talking about the lead weapon, I'm not going to have somebody do 5 hits with the lead weapon and call it, oh, that's specifically my own. Because trying to do 5 hits with the lead weapon is ridiculous. 3 hits is good. 5 is
Right.
ridiculous.
Yeah, 5 hits, you're hitting a corpse.
Right? You see? So again, the 4 tenets of Jeet Kune Do. When I get the store up and running again, we'll put that on a T-shirt again and on a coffee mug and what have you, because yeah, it's good stuff.
Merchandising.
Yeah. All right. Okay.
All right, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, man. I enjoy when the tables are turned on me. Okay.
All right, take care, sir.
You
Have
too.
a good evening.
Good night.
Good night.
All right, guys. Okay, there you have it. That was episode 90 of the Jeet Kune Do Dialogues with me and my good friend Rob Lee. Hope you guys got something out of that. We did this, we put this together just a couple of days ago, Turn the Tables episode, because Emil Martirosyan was not going to be able to come on. He will be here with me on Monday for episode number 91 of the Jeet Kune Do Dialogue. So this should be Monday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time. If you go back to the beginning of today's episode, you'll hear about all of the people that I have lined up for the next, the few coming weeks. So, feel free to share this, like, comment, ask questions. I'll review everything after posting. Sign up for notifications for when we go live here on Facebook. And please subscribe over on the YouTube for the I Love Jeet Kune Do broadcast, the Jeet Kune Do Dialogues, and the FMA files. And when you subscribe, please hit the notification bell over there as well. Follow me on Twitter at Dwight Woods, on Instagram at Dwight D. Woods. And I'll see you back here, some of you on Monday, some of you next Wednesday, some of you next Friday. All right, this is Dwight Woods, the Jeet Kune Do Rebel, signing off. You guys enjoy your weekend. Take care.